composition levy, we have classified into 10 topics. Yeah. Because section 10 na 10 topics are number 1, introduction to composition levy, turnover limit for composition levy, aggregate turnover, rate of composition levy, state turnover, and the procedural aspects, services by composition dealer, non-applicability of composition levy, 10.3, 10.4, 10.5. These are the classification. As introduction to composition levy, we understood that composition levy is not a compulsory in nature. It is an option. So it is an option for specified category of small taxpayers, kutti taxpayers, correct? To pay GST at a very lower rate on the basis of the, so it is otherwise called as turnover based tax, my dear lovable students. These are the 4 advantages. Number 1, low rate of tax, hassle-free simple procedure for such taxpayer, simple calculation of tax based on turnover, and very simple quarterly return, for whom the provisions are applicable. In case of a registered person whose aggregate turnover in the immediately preceding previous year does not exceed 1.5 crore, will be eligible to opt for the payment of tax under the. So in case of a registered person whose aggregate turnover in the immediately preceding previous year does not exceed 1.5 crore are entitled to travel through the composition levy. However, the aggregate turnover in the preceding financial year shall be ethanol lakh. In case of eligible registered person registered under section 25 of the said act in any of the following states. So if these guys are situated in 8 special category states, you are not supposed to read it as 1.5 crore. You are supposed to read it as number 1, Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Sikkim, Nagaland, Tripura, Bagdodra, Uttarakhand. These are the 8 special category states for the purpose of composition levy. That means in case of Assam, Himachal Pradesh and Jammu Kashmir, turnover limit will be 1. So this is the summary, my dear lovable students. A registered person can be classified into 2 categories whose aggregate turnover in the immediately preceding previous year exceeds 1.5 crores or 75 lakh. Then only section 9 route, there is no question of section 10 route composition, and the aggregate turnover does not exceed 1.5 crores or 75 lakh. Either section 9 or section 10 as they have to choose. It's an option for them. With regard to summary, sir, India can be classified into 2 categories. Number 1, 8 special category states other than 8 special category states, correct? 8 special category states are Arunachal Pradesh, Assam, Manipur, Meghalaya, Mizoram, Sikkim, Nagaland, Tripura, Bagdodra, Uttarakhand, and other than 8 special category states. If it is 8 special category states, the threshold limit is 75 lakhs, whereas other than 8 special category states, the threshold limit is 1 point. That's it with regard to the second topic, my dear lovable students. Number 1 is introduction to composition levy. Number 2 is applicability of composition levy. Number 3 letters should be there, aggregate turnover. So whether a person can travel through the composition levy or not is based upon. So while computing the threshold limit of either 1.5 crores or 75 lakhs as the inclusions and exclusions of aggregate turnover are as follows. Aggregate turnover includes value of all outward supplies such as all taxable supply, all exempt supply, export of goods or services or both, interstate supply, and excludes CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST, cess, and value of inward supply on which tax is liable to be paid on of the person having the same PAN to be computed on. Shall we together say the aggregate turnover definition once? Yes, aggregate turnover includes, aggregate turnover excludes. Aggregate turnover includes all taxable supply, all exempt supply, export of goods or services or both, interstate supply, and excludes CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST, cess, and value of inward supply on which tax is liable to be paid on a person having the same PAN to be computed on. We are having explanation to the definition of aggregate turnover. While calculating that aggregate turnover in the immediately preceding previous year, there is one explanation has been placed for the purpose of computing the aggregate turnover for composition levy. For the purpose of computing any turnover of a person for determining his eligibility to pay tax under this section, that is section 10. So this explanation is applicable only for the purpose of computing the aggregate turnover for the purpose of any levy. the aggregate turnover shall include aggregate turnover அப்ப aggregate turnover இதை include பண்ணனும் the value of such supply made by such person from the 1st April of any year up to the date when he become liable for registration under this act. For example, you are a person from the first day of the year financial year till the day on which you are liable for registration. This turnover should be included in the turnover. Aggregate turnover. Number 2, but shall not include, the value of exempt supply of service provided by extending deposit, loan or advance for which the consideration has been received by way of interest or discount. That means one thing should be included, my dear lovable students, and one thing should be excluded. The thing to be included is the turnover from the first day of the financial year till the date on which he become liable for registration. And we know that, sir, one service should be excluded. Number 1, value of inward supply on which tax is liable to be paid on. Extending deposit, loan or advance for which the consideration has been received by way of. This has to be excluded while calculating the definition of aggregate turnover for the purpose of. So topic number 1 is introduction, my dear lovable students. Number 2 is applicability, and number 3 A, T, O, 3 letters are there. Aggregate. I am coming to the 4th topic, rate. R-A-T-E, rate is the 4th topic. Shall I? Sir, a composition supplier may opt to pay in lieu of tax payable under him under section 9.1. So this is not a replacement for 9.3. This is only a replacement for. That's why we always discuss that if a composition dealer is receiving any services which are liable to be paid on RCM, sir, composition rate will not be, RCM rate will be applicable because this is in lieu of only section 9.1 and not in lieu of 9.3 or 9.4 or 9.5 as the right man. So a composition supplier may opt to pay in lieu of tax payable by him under section 9.1 an amount of tax calculated at the undermentioned rate. So you may be either manufacturer, correct, or you may be a restaurant service, or you may be other supplier. If you are a manufacturer, 1% of the state turnover is the tax liability, right? In that 0.5% CGST and 0.5% SGST. We can never say that 1% IGST, because if you are a composition supplier, outward supply, interstate outward supply is not allowed. Clarity?
Yes, sir.
If you are a restaurant serviceman, 5% of the state turnover is the, sir, tax rate applicable, which can be bifurcated into 2.5% of CGST and 2.5% of SGST. And if you are other supplier, then 1% of the taxable supply of goods or services or both. This is not based on the state turnover, my dear lovable students. Are you really with me? So this is the summary as per section 10 subsection 1. Composition rate of tax classified into 3 category. Manufacturer means 1% of, restaurant service means 5% of, trader means 1% of taxable supply of goods and services. Are you really with me? So the first topic with regard to the composition levy is introduction. Number 2 is applicability. Number 3 is aggregate turnover. Number 4 is rate. And number 5 is state. Are you really with me? S-T-A-T-E. 5 letters are there. That's why it is topic number 5. Definition of inner turnover. Because we understood that tax is liable to be paid on either 1% of the state turnover or 5% of the state turnover. So state turnover includes, state turnover excludes. Correct? State turnover includes value of all outward supplies such as taxable supply and exempt supply. என்னவும் வராது. Interstate supply, export of goods or services or both வராது. And excludes CGST, SGST, UTGST, IGST and value of inward supply on which tax is liable to be paid on of persons having the NA PAN, same PAN, but to be computed on NA India basis. வராது, because this is a என்ன turnover, state turnover calculate பண்ணும்போது அந்த ஸ்டேட்ல எவ்வளோ turnover இருக்குன்னு தான் பார்க்கணுமே தவிர ஆல் இந்தியாவில் எவ்வளோ turnover இருக்குன்னு பார்க்க கூடாது. I'm moving to that, sir. The next topic, 6th topic, that is alpam. That is, sir, how much service can be supplied by the composition dealer, correct? Such service can be supplied by the composition dealer as per second proviso to section 10 subsection 1, correct?
Yes, sir.
A person who ought to pay tax under class A, class B, class C. Sir, what is class A? Manufacturer. What is class B? Restaurant wala. Sir, what is class C? trader may supply services other than those referred in class B of para 6 of schedule 2. That is what services? So in addition to restaurant services, my dear lovable students, even they can provide other services. But the other services should not exceed a particular limit, correct? Of the value of not exceeding 10% of the turnover in the state or union territory in preceding financial year, or rupees 5 lakh, whichever is higher. So one time say, what is the alpum limit? 10% of the state turnover in the immediately preceding previous year, or rupees 5 lakh, whichever is, once again, 10% of the, whichever is, supply to be excluded from determining turnover in the state or union territory for determining payment of tax, right? My dear lovable students, this is as per explanation number 2. As per explanation number 2, while calculating the state turnover, we studied one explanation for calculating of any turnover. Aggregate turnover. Aggregate turnover includes one thing, excludes one thing, correct? Because it is explanation number 1. So only one thing can be included, one thing can be excluded. Are you really with me? This is explanation number 2. Two things should be excluded. Hello, sir. Hello, sir. Yes, sir. What explanation number 1 is saying that, my dear lovable students, from the start of the financial year till the day on which you are liable for registration, that turnover should be included in the aggregate turnover, and sir, interest turnover should be excluded, right? Yes, now what the state turnover for the purpose of determining the N payable, because we will be calculating or paying the tax based on the a person under this section, turnover in the state or turnover in the union territory shall not include the value of following supply, namely supply from the first day of a year, financial year, up to the date when such person become liable for registration under this act, because this is an exempt supply, correct? This is my threshold exemption, correct? Yes, if this threshold exemption, if you are including in the aggregate turnover, it will not pinch me, correct? Yes, but if the threshold exemption, if you are including in the state turnover, my dear lovable students, because even for that threshold exemption, I am liable to pay tax that I will never allow. That's why it has been excluded. Or exempt supply of services provided by extending deposit, loan or advance insofar as the consideration is represented by way of interest or discount. This is what explanation number what is all about. 2 is all about. So 2 things should be excluded, my dear lovable students. So shall we summarize like this? Explanation classified into 2 categories. Explanation number 1 and explanation number 2. Explanation number 1 again classified into 2 categories. Includes, excludes. What you are supposed to include is threshold limit NSR turnover should be and interest turnover should be. That's it. What explanation number 2 is saying that 2 things should be excluded while calculating the state turnover. Number 1, threshold limit exemption should be excluded, and interest is what? Right. 10-2 man, non-applicability man. So because we are done with 10-1, 10-1 are done. 10-1 is applicability. I'm coming to 10-2. Person not eligible to opt for any scheme, composition scheme under section 10-2. Broadly 6 category of registered person are not eligible for composition scheme. Correct? Yes, number 1, supplier of services subject to what? Second proviso to 10 subsection 1. If you are exclusively supplying services, you are having separate mechanism called as 10-2A mechanism. Correct? Yes, sir. 10 2-way mechanism. Anga poyinga neenga 10-1 la vara mudiyadu. Sir, but I am what sir supplying only alpam. Then okay man, sir main plus alpam is allowed, but only alpam is not allowed. Supplier of goods which are not taxable under the CGST, SGST, UTGST Act. If you are supplying, sir, for that there is no what at all. GST at all. Why are you sir searching for section 9 route or 10 route as the an interstate supplier of goods or services? If you are supplying the goods or services interstate outward supply I am talking about, then you are not supposed to enter into the composition levy. A person who is engaged in making any supply of services through a electronic e-commerce operator who is required to collect tax at source under section 52. This is an amendment for your examination. Earlier both goods and services was there. Now they have removed goods, they have relaxed goods. That means you can supply goods through e-commerce operator, my dear lovable students. A person who is engaged in making any supply of now only services through an e-commerce operator who is required to collect tax at source under section 52. Hello. So if you are supplying goods through an e-commerce operator, e-commerce operator, then it is allowed. If you are supplying through services through e-commerce operator, it is not allowed. Manufacture of certain notified goods, man. Ineligible manufacturers like ice cream. Sir, government don't like ice cream. Sir, pan masala, aerated water, all goods of tobacco and manufactured tobacco substitute, fly ash, bricks, fly ash aggregate, fly ash block, brick of fossil meal or similar, sir, siliceous earth, building bricks and earthen or tile. Roofing tile. Sir, if you are eating more NSR of pan masala, ice cream and tobacco, you will set up so kulila pitukula then they will NSR, you will become ash. Are you really with me? After a certain point of time, you will become fossil. Sir, they will be constructing certain mandiram, they will be constructing, building bricks and all they will be using. Sir, earthen or tiles, roofing tiles, and aerated water. So this is what government is saying. So don't do all these things. Then you are not entitled to composition levy. And casual taxable person or non-resident taxable person, these two guys are not entitled for composition levy. These two guys are outside the composition levy. So there is no restriction on composition supplier to procure goods from interstate supplier. Your inward supply may be interstate, but your outward supply should not be interstate. Paka? Person not eligible for composition levy, my dear lovable students. One line summary is services. If you are exclusively engaging services, sir, it is not allowed. But I am a normal person subject to the second proviso. If my limit is within alpam, then allowed, sir. Goods not covered under the CGST, SGST, UT, GST, out. Interstate outward supply, out. Supply of services through e-commerce operator, out. Earlier it was what and what. Now it is only services. And notified goods are out. And this is applicable for all transaction of registered person with the same PAN. Sir, under one PAN, if I am having 2 units and if 1 unit, if I am decided to travel through section 9 route, then I am ineligible to travel through section. All the registered person having the same PAN have to be out for composition scheme. If one registered person opt for composition scheme, other become ineligible for composition scheme. Are you all really with me? Appo pona ellame composition la pono illena. Sir, 10.3 option lapses, my dear lovable students. The benefit of composition scheme can be availed up to the aggregate turnover of either etana crore or etana lakh. 1.5 crores or 75 lakhs in the current financial year. Correct? Up in the 1.5 crores or 75 lakhs work the option availed of by registered person under section 10.1 shall lapse with effect from the day. It's not the week, it's not the quarter, it's not the month, it is what? Day. That's why 10 subsection 3, because only 3 letters are there. Day. Are you all really with me? On which is aggregate turnover during a financial year exceeds the limit of 1.5 crores or 75 lakhs as the. Now coming to 10 subsection 4, no output tax and no input tax. Sir, if you are a composition dealer, my dear lovable students, you are not supposed to collect any output tax from the recipient, and whatever GST you have paid at the time of procurement will not be allowed to take as ITC. A taxable person to whom the provisions of composition scheme apply shall not collect any tax from the recipient on supply made by him. It means that the composition dealer cannot issue a tax invoice. There is no section 31 for him. Instead, he has to issue enough supply. A taxable person to whom the provisions of composition apply shall not be entitled to any credit of input tax. That means if you are a composition dealer, purchase பண்ணும்போது ஏதாவது GST கொடுத்து purchase பண்ணிருக்கீங்கன்னா அது என்னவா எடுக்க முடியாது. I'm coming to the last one, man. 10 subsection 5. என்ன consequences? Sir, even after you are ineligible to travel through the composition levy, and still if you are traveling through the composition levy, if the PO has reason to believe that taxable person has paid tax under the composition levy despite not being eligible, you are not eligible or entitled to travel through the. Such person shall, in addition to any tax that may be payable by him under any provisions of this act, be liable to a penalty and the provisions of 73 and 74. Sir, it will be recovered through 73 and 74. Shall be applicable for determination of what and what. So, even after you not being eligible for composition levy, and if you are traveling through the composition route, my dear lovable students, hello? Yes, sir. Then you will be subject to penalty. That penalty may be general penalty under section 125. Hello, sir? Because there is no specific penalty for the composition levy anywhere in the act. So anywhere if you are not levying penalty, you will be levying penalty under section 125 to the extent of 25,000. We know CA final, correct? And that amount will be recovered through 73 or. And rate of tax payable on supply taxable under the RCM will be regular rate and not in with regard to that. So if a composition dealer is receiving any 93 or 53 services, then 9353 rate will be applicable and not the 10 concessional tax rate under section 10(1) rates will not be applicable, my dear lovable students. Paka. With this we can say that we are done with the composition levy for the goods and we are pending with the composition levy for the services. Are you really with me? My dear lovable students. Sir, I just want to tell you this revision will be continuing for last 40 days. The same half an hour we'll be discussing, and when you are revising along with me, sometimes many points when you are in class you will not be able to link it. When I repeat that, in the மாதிரி point இருக்காங்க, இது இங்க connect ஆகுதா அப்படிங்கிற மாதிரி, it is equal to taking the class once again, my dear lovable students. Hello sir. So revise along with me itself, and you don't have any more motivation that your examination is going to be after 40 days. அதுக்கு மேல ஒரு motivation தேவையில்லை. So this 40 days only we are going to learn this subject. So study very well. And with regard to the online, my dear lovable students, sir, if anyone need, because this we are doing actually a very great charity, because this will be helping the students a lot in the South India to revise the NSR entire IDT. So anyone sir need that in this NSR need of the hour, sir, you can share it and sir spread it to the needy people, because that is a maximum help I can do as a teacher to sir revise the entire subject. And now because of technology, no need to come to NSR classes, you can revise it that from the home itself. And my dear lovable students, revise on a daily basis, share your happiness, share your NSR happiness, be very positive, utilize your daily. நேற்றை விட இன்னைக்கு நம்மளோட ப்ரிப்பரேஷனில் என்ன ஆட் பண்ண முடியும் அப்படிங்கிறத நம்ம திங்க் பண்ணமே தவிர அதுக்கு மேலே நம்ம எதுவும் திங்க் பண்ண வேண்டிய அவசியம் இல்லை. டோன்ட் ட்ரை ஃபார் ஸ்டடிங் 100%, இட் இஸ் நாட் ரிக்வயர்ட் ஃபார் CA. Sir, try to revise 100%, whatever you have studied, that is very much required for CA. Sir, this is a very valid and an important statement. So we'll be meeting tomorrow morning for sir suppliers, composition dealer for suppliers.